Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So this was the card I created yesterday and I really love it. I just love the simple technique, the simple idea, and it really works so well. I think works beautifully, so I'm really pleased with that. But I was sitting there and thinking, well, how can I develop this idea to look a little bit different? So we're going to take another card, and what I've done for one to make it look different is I've got exactly the same size card blank, which is 5 by 7 inches, so exactly the same card blank as I've got here, but then I've created a mat that is 1/4 inch smaller, so that is 5 1/4 by 7 1/4, so that's just 1/4 inch smaller. And then I've still got the same mat, which is 4 by 6, all pink frog card, but just doing that changes the look as well because the layout is completely different. So that's one way we can change the look. So we'll use our 4 by 6 piece of card, and this time I'm going to use my bird again, like we did before. There's a nice bit of ink on there. So I'm going to use the bird I did before. And then this time I'm going to use my Take Flight stamp set, TE9. And what I'm going to do first is, I don't know how much this card has been handled, so I'm just going to add my anti-static bag just over the card, mainly because the card was already cut, but I don't know how much it's been handled. And then I'm going to take my Versamark ink. I have the Versamark ink in my shop online. I'll add a link to the description box. And what I'm going to do is take the Take Flight stamp. Let's add this to an acrylic block. Now, if you've got little bits of debris on the back of your stamp because you're handling it, you can either wash it in soapy water, or I'll just use my wipe and give that a little bit of a clean, because I can feel bits of embossing powder, and I can actually, you might not see it, but I can actually see the dirt that comes off the back of there. And then I'll just restick that. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ink the stamp, but I'm not necessarily aiming for every area. So I'm going to ink this with my Versamark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab the ink so that it's a little bit more random. So I've removed some of that ink with my kitchen roll. I'm then going to just add the stamping just across my card. And it really doesn't matter if I miss bits, because you've just seen that I've literally just dabbed some of the ink off there so that it's sort of random. I can sort of see where that is. Hopefully I won't aim for the same place. So I'm going to ink again. And then again, I'm just going to use my kitchen towel just to remove some of the areas, just so it's not pristine perfect. And then we'll just add our image again. So the Versamark watermark ink is a sticky ink pad. It's a sticky ink pad, so that allows me to emboss. So let's just allow that ink just to sit on there a few moments, and you can see, even whether I'm stamping with VersaFine Clair, whatever I'm using, you can see that I still give that time to grab hold of the card. I'm then going to use white embossing powder, whatever white embossing powder you have is absolutely fine. Now, because I've used that anti-static bag, that should work quite nice, and it proves how good the ink pad is. I removed little bits of ink with the kitchen towel, and it's hardly removed anything. That's how good the sticky ink pad is. It's a really good one. So we'll just grab our heat tool, which I've already got plugged in for a change. And then what we're going to do is just heat our heat tool up. So let's just give that time to heat up rather than going straight to the card, and just so that you can see the stamp on there. So just give that a little bit of time. There we go. I'm going to lift that up, and then we'll just heat. Do you know when you suddenly think, did I use white? Just takes a little bit of time before it starts to change. There it goes. And once it's started to melt, just move your heat tool around, just so that you don't heat the same area. And I'm just tilting because I can hardly see what area I am hitting. There we go. The light, I'm right by a window, but because the weather is so wet and dull, it's very difficult to see the embossing. That's why you'll see me turn the card a few times, mainly because even though it is, you know, during the day, it is poor light with the dull wet days that we're having here. Hopefully getting the last little bit, which again I can hardly see. Now, is that done? Oh, it'll be fine for what we want. Right, so we've got our embossing, just so that you can see the embossing on there. Let that cool a few moments. You don't want to go on there while it's red hot. So then we'll take the snippet stencil tweet. There we go. So we'll take our snippet stencil, and let's have the two birds again. So we'll have the U there. And again, because I've got that embossing on there, I'm just going to fold my paper in half so I don't get those embossing crystals all over the place, and just cover that bit up just so I don't get anything anywhere. Now, the stencil covers the card because it's 4x6, and the snippet stencils are 4x4, and it's got the name on the top of the stencil, which I rub over with my VersaFine Clair ink so that it's visible, and it actually says snippet stencil SS1 tweet. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to use some different colours. So I'm going to use, let's try and put them in some kind of order. I'm going to use Salvage Patina and Salty Ocean and Cracked Pistachio. So I'm just taking some ink just off my brush, mainly because the Salvage Patina is quite pale. So I'm going to take the Salvage Patina and just build up that ink just on my blending tool, sponge, whatever you happen to be using. And like we did yesterday, I'm going to add some of that salvaged patina. And then I'm going to use cracked pistachio. A little bit of the cracked pistachio, which will give me some of that nice sort of greeny colour. And just layer the colour. You don't really need to press on hard. And then we'll take a little touch of that salty ocean, mainly because the salty ocean is quite a strong colour, so you don't want to overpower your other colours, just so that you can... Do I want to spritz this? No, I don't think I do. So just so that you can see, like so. And then what we'll do is we'll wipe over with our kitchen roll when we've finished both of them. So what I can do now, exactly like I did before, let's grab a piece of card. So I've got a spare piece of card here. And I don't even have to wet the stencil. What I can do, let's move this. So let's hold the stencil up here so you can see I'm not wetting the stencil. The stencil is here. I can wet the card. Place the beard on. Like so. And then just blot that with my kitchen roll. And just give that a little bit of time just to do its thing. And it doesn't matter if there's not enough colour on there. If there is, great. If there isn't much colour on there. I have got the beard on there, but there isn't much colour because we've used paler colours. But always test it, because it's just worth it to see if you can get a second generation print. Yesterday we were using darker colours. So what you want to do is make sure that that stencil is nice and dry, which mine isn't because my kitchen roll is quite wet. Let's just dry that stencil. And then we can turn our stencil over. Like so. And then again, like I did the other day, I'm just going to cover that up, and then I'm just going to rub off some of the darker blue. And then I'm going to pick up the salvaged patina. The salvaged patina is a lighter colour, and mine is quite well used. So I'm just going to add the salvage patina. Then we're going to use the cracked pistachio and add our cracked pistachio. Just to add a little bit of that. And then we'll take a little bit of the salty ocean. And if you've got too much of one colour, you can go back and you can add the other colour. And if there's something that you want to add more of, just simply go back and add more of that colour. There we go. So now we've got our beautiful birds on there. Again, there's a little bit of colour on here, but as we saw before, it didn't show much, but let's have a look, see if it'll show any more. There's not much colour on there. It's difficult for you to see in camera, but I can actually see a little bit of a silhouette on my card. And of course, it's harder to pick up the stencil than do anything else because it sticks down. A little bit more colour, not much. But always test them just in case you can get a little bit of a print on there. You can still use that as a background. So what I'm going to do then is just take my finger on the kitchen roll, just a little bit of water on there, just a little bit, and I can just rub over the area. Now you can see it's removed some of that colour, so then just go to some clean kitchen roll, just to, there we go, just so that you can see you've got those two birds on there. Can you see? Just works really nicely. So let's just, which one, we don't want to do the blues, do we? So we want just a bit of a contrast now. Where's my grey colour? Do I already have that out? So I'm just going to take a little bit of the hickory smoke and I'm just going to grab my water brush. Let's move this all out of the way, just so you can see what I'm doing. First of all, I'm making sure that my brush is clean, which it isn't. But I'm going to take a little bit of hickory smoke distress oxide ink, a little bit of water, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of this grey. And I'm just going to go around a little bit. I'm not touching, so take off the excess, and I'm not touching the colour around the bird. I'm just using this touch of grey just to go around, pick up a bit of water, take off the excess, just to blend that out. So I'm sort of going up to the bird, but avoiding the blues and greens as much as I possibly can. Just avoiding that as much as I can, and just picking up a little bit of the grey with some water as well, because it just gives me a little bit of a contrast. And then I'm just going to come in a little bit darker, sort of near the edge. So let's have a little bit more of the hickory smoke, a little bit more water, and then take off the excess water because that stops it flooding into the other area you've already done. So it stops it doing that because you haven't got a soaking wet brush. If you've got a soaking wet brush, all as that does is floods your project, which you don't want it to flood your project. You're just taking your time. So you're going in a bit darker, but your brush is not soaking wet. So you're just going in a little bit darker, just towards the edges, but my brush is almost dry, but just sort of damp enough just to, and then where I come right at the edge here, I can add a little bit more water just to soften that out. But when you go in near the bird, don't add too much water because you don't want it to flood in to the area that you've already coloured. If it does a little bit, that's not a problem. You just don't want to drag too much out that you haven't got a little bit of that contrast. You want to have the contrast of the grey against that colour, just so that you can see that. And we can also add more colour now to our bird now that we've got these areas done. So we go round this bird and you've got a nice flat card if you don't want too much dimension. So we're going on with our first layer of the grey, like we did before, just the initial layer of that colour. And where you think you've got a harsh line, you can just blend that colour out. Grab some more Distress Oxide Hickory Smoke. Just go around. Let's pick up a little bit more water, not too much. And then if it isn't blending out, you can use water at the ends. Where the darkest colour that you're adding, you want that at the edges. So you just keep working on your project. So now it's sort of, for me, it's the fun bit. You've laid down your design and now you're sort of bringing that to life. And this for me is it's my favourite bit. It's the bit I always call where I'm faffing, but I just love doing that. Just faffing a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit more darkness just around the edge of our bird. And if you've got any straight edges, you can just blend that out. So don't rush this process. You're just adding the layers of colour exactly like you would do if you were doing it with your pencils. You're sort of adding some depth to your design, no differently than if you were doing it with pencils, just to give a little bit more depth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean all this up. I'm then going to just clean my brush so that we don't dull any of the colours. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cracked pistachio. So I'm going to take the cracked pistachio, tiny bit of water, but always making sure that I've got my kitchen roll. So I'm going to pick up that cracked pistachio, just make sure I've not got soaking wet brush. And then where I've got some of the cracked pistachio, I'm just going to add a little bit more depth of that colour. So you can go in now and you can just add a little bit more depth. Now, if you're not happy doing this, you know what you can do? You can put your stencil back over and you can add more colour that way. I just find this a little bit more natural. So I'm just touching the cracked pistachio where the cracked pistachio is on my bird. So I'm just adding a little bit more of that cracked pistachio just to where I've got that on my bird. I'm just adding a little bit more. That's all I'm doing, just adding. And you can even, if you haven't got any in an area, you can just add some over the top of your colours. So say you wanted some cracked pistachio in the tail, you can then go over and you can add a little bit of cracked pistachio just in the tail. So you can change it continually. So let's just clean the brush now, because we've got quite a bit of sort of the greeny tinge on there. So let's make sure that that brush is clean. Now I'm going to go to the selvage patina. Now my selvage patina is super well used. So let's take a bit of that water and we'll pick up that selvage patina. Make sure I've not got too much water on there. And I can add a little bit more depth with that selvage patina. And again, just like I did before, if you haven't got a touch of selvage patina in an area, you can then go and add a little touch of the selvage patina where the green is. So if you want a little bit of selvage patina to break up your green, you can do exactly that. And I love just sort of faffing with the colours a little bit. So just so that you can see. Now what I'm going to do, let's grab a really dark blue. So I'm going to grab like a prized ribbon. So I'm then going to take my stencil. Well, she's going to take a stencil if she can actually find the stencil. So first of all, put your hands over your stencil and make sure that that is clean. You can see exactly where your stencil goes over, because you can line that up quite nicely. Take a few moments just to line it back up. And what I want you to do is just put a little bit on the edge of your brush, your blending tool, whatever. Start here on the stencil and then just come in around the edges, just a little bit, just around the edges. And can you see most of that colour is going to be on the stencil. So just take your time, and most of that colour's on the stencil. If you can't see much, add a little bit more, a very tiny amount, most of it on your stencil. So you want most of that on your stencil. And I want you to just take your time just to add a little bit here and there, just of the darker blue, which is prize ribbon in my case. It doesn't matter which of the darker blues that you use. And it just brings a little bit more definition to your bird. So I am going to place it back because I like it so much. place this back. There we go. And then I'm going to add a little bit more. And can you see I'm sort of swiping it sort of down onto the stencil? Can you see? Just to give, so most of the colour is on the stencil. Let's have a look now. There you go. You're bringing more definition to that bird compared to the other one. So we're going to do the other side, but now obviously you've got some ink on there. So let's spritz that with water. And we can place this on here. Again, I just class these as backgrounds. And I often, the times I pick up backgrounds I've created from weeks ago and use them just as exactly that, just a background piece. So what I've got now is sort of a layered bird just in the background, which I can add with text, etc. So let's just make sure that that is dry. And then we're going to place this over here. Now, if you don't want to add the definition, this is your project. You don't have to add the definition. So I'm just using the prize ribbon. And again, just swiping it down the stencil. So most of the colour is on the stencil. You're sort of airbrushing a little bit of that colour just along that stencil. So just sort of airbrushing a little bit of that colour just to give a little bit more dimension, and that just gives the bird a little bit more depth. Just beautiful. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to completely clean my brush. So I'm just going to make sure that is completely clean, so that I've definitely got the water running clean. That's it. So I've got the water running clean now. And then I'm just going to go over the embossed areas and dab off the ink. So I'm just going to sort of go over a few of them embossed areas. Now you can just wipe over with your kitchen roll. The reason I'm not doing that is so that I don't affect that layer of colour that I've added, you know, when I added extra colour. So I'm just making sure I don't affect that. And you can see that this is a lot more whiter than this area here. So I'm going to just, and then use my kitchen roll and dab that. Again, and dab up. Let's take some off the heart and dab that up. And I can see that I'm lifting some colour because my brush has got that colour on. So I need some more clean water. And then just dab. So you can remove some of the colour just from your embossed area. And again, like I said, if you can't be bothered to do that, just use your finger, and you can point your finger and you can just wipe over the areas you want to remove a little bit of the ink from the embossed areas, just so that you can see that. Just works really, really nicely. So where's my little inktense pencil? probably still got it out somewhere because I didn't actually tidy everything away, she says confidently. It's so small, I actually lose it. I actually lose the pencil. So I'm going to add a little bit more definition. Okay, so I'm going to go round my bird just with my inktense pencil. Just going around it, just with that inktense pencil. Do you know, it's raining here again. They say we've had enough rain. We've had rain as in, oh crikey, I can't speak. A year's worth of rain in the first 3 months of the year. We'll still have a hosepipe ban, you watch. So let's just go around our little bird. And I'll just blend that out just so that you can see. I'm just, hey, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're just scribbling round a little bit just to give a little bit of definition. And I like to show just how many ways you can get ideas. So many ideas you can get using your stamps and stencils. Let's go around there. There we go. So at the moment we've got that nice sort of definition of the birds. Then we'll take our brush again. Let's make sure it's not got any of the colours on. A little bit of water, and let's make sure we've got that kitchen roll. And then I'm just going to sort of touch the inktense pencil. Just going to touch that. And it moves a little bit, not too much. So I'm just going to, I'm not using very much water, but it just gives a little bit of definition to the bird. Now you need good quality card. There's no point trying to use this much moisture on a card, one that doesn't allow you to move inks with water, or when you use the card it sort of bows too much as you use it. There we go. You can just, let's go around our other one, and you can see I've not dipped that into too much water. I can go back and just grab a little bit of water just to touch the surface of that inktense pencil. If you drown your pencil with water, all as that will do is flood the whole area, which you don't want that to do. So less is more. You don't want to flood that area out. There we go. Just gives you that beautiful definition. Right. So let's just give a slight waft. Now what I mean is heat your heat tool up, because you've got embossing on here. So you don't want to sort of affect that embossing again. So let's just heat it up and then just give it a quick little waft. You're not sitting on an area with your heat tool. And then let's just bend our card just so that it's, there we go. Then if you've got a dry piece of kitchen roll, dryish, I'm just going to dust my card and make sure the kitchen roll is clean. There we go. So we've got sort of a beautiful image. So then I can use my Take Flight stamp set again, and on there it says Take Flight, so we shall use that. Let's just place this back, and it just shows how your stamps all work together. Let's take, and don't forget you've still got that ink on here that you can spritz and then create another background. Let's take that. So I need a little bit of card. Take our little bit of card. It's not exactly a little bit of card, but there you go. Where's my black ink pad? Must have put it away. And then we'll just ink with the black Nocturne ink. And you can just completely miss the stamp. You know why that was? I was trying to keep my finger away from the bent area of the card. I do not know why. So just give that a couple of seconds. Now, that's what happens when you rush and you lift it too soon. That's what happens when you leave it on there. But also, what you don't want to do with these stamps, let me show you. I do small stamps for a reason. So with these, you can literally just place it on there and do nothing with it. You can just hold it there. You don't have to press. You can just leave it and you just get a nice stamp. Now, if you take this with your soaking wet Versa Fine Clair and then you press really hard, all that does is drown the letters with ink. So you don't want to do that. So let me grab my other scissors. So just so that you're aware of that. So let's take our little sentiment. We'll use this piece of card actually. I think it's been lying under something and that's why it's so bent. I'm then going to use a faux black matte. You can use your ink if you wish. We're all different. I find that if I use my Versa Fine Clair ink, I find that obviously it's designed to stay wetter longer. So because it takes a little longer to dry, I end up picking it up and then smudging the edges. So I just do it with my Posca pen, just so that I've got that faux black matte. Again, you still have to give things time to dry. And I'm always aware, because I'm going on that card, just to make sure that I've got clean hands. No adhesive, what a shock. And we can pick our sentiment up, just add a little bit of adhesive. Let's just place the lid on there. And I'm going to add the Take Flight here, just like so. Oh yes, I really like that. And then where is, let me see if I can find it. There you are. Let me just have a look. This is my Quirky Bird stamp set TE10. I'm going to add the little heart in there. So let's take flight. Place that there. And then the same card, the same scrap of card. Not exactly a scrap of card, but there you go. You can now, this could quite easily be an anniversary card. And I don't have to press hard. I don't have to hurt my wrists. The main thing is just letting that ink just connect with the surface of the card so that it makes a good impression. It's not about pressing so that you hurt your wrists. We'll then cut the heart out. Just so that we've got there we go. And then I want my little white pen just to add the touches, just a touch of white there. I'm just going to add a touch of white there. There we go. I'll just pick that up just so you can see I've just added the little touch of white there. Oh, and then I've just dropped it like you do. So the only dimensional pieces which aren't two-dimensional are the heart, and I've not added dimension as in I've used my pin flare. I'm just using a normal adhesive so it doesn't add too much dimension. So it's still relatively flat, and we'll go through the large letter post. Now we need to add a little bit of shading just under here, and then I don't know whether there's enough moisture on there. I never use too much, I just, there we go. You can take off the excess and then sort of blend that out, and if you've got too much, just dab a little bit, soon works. So then I'm going to put a little bit down the edge of the heart. I don't need to really wet that brush again. Just take off that excess and then just blend that out a little bit. There we go. Just so that you can see. And then I'm going to add some splatters of white. You can use your gesso, you can use your bleed proof, you can use your Posca pen, you can use paint, whichever is your preferred way. There's a little bit of debris on my card. There we go. That's a little bit of fluff there. There we go. Let's just wipe over our area. Oops. Just so that you can see our card. I absolutely love that, and I've really relaxed just doing that. So then I'm going to add this to my black mat. Now, it's got a little bit of a wider frame compared to the previous card, so that we make sure it looks a little bit different than the previous card, which is the whole point. So let's just add one side first. There we go. Sort of almost looks framed with having the bigger border. And obviously, as I always say in every video, you wouldn't try to stick your piece down when you've got wet Posca. But you could add that to a journal quite easily, couldn't you? It doesn't have to be a card. So, and then I'm going to add this to a 5x7 card blank. Again, you don't have to add yours to a card. It would look just as beautiful in your journal. Just place this here. And now I can just move that very slightly, just to make sure that that is right. And what you've done is you've applied the same techniques I've shown you, but to give a different look. So now, if we bring in our previous card, which was this one, we've now created this one. And I just love them. I absolutely love them. And what you can do, if you've got a little bit of an area that you think, oh, I just need to blend that out a little bit more, you can blend it out still more because it's still reactive. So you can blend it out a little bit more. So just enjoy your project. I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. And it's almost completely flat. Just absolutely love it. So I hope you enjoy giving that a go, and I look forward to seeing your interpretations. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.